My cat Freddie loves to be brushed and cuddled. But stirring up his cat allergens meant sneezing and itchy eyes. Then I found Purina One Live Clear. It's cat food that reduced the major allergen and my suffering in as little as 21 days. Now, we feel closer than ever. If you have issues with cat allergens, you really need to try Purina One Live Clear.
Try new Purina One Live Clear today. Purina One, a difference from day one.
Richard Nixon.
Well, I'm not a crook.
Ronald Reagan.
Tear down this wall.
George W. Bush.
I can hear you. The rest of the world hears you.
And Donald Trump.
And a friend of mine for a long time, he only likes politics. If you ask him about how are the Yankees doing, he has no interest. If you ask him almost anything, he likes politics, and he's a professional at the highest level. Roger Stone.
All of these presidents relied on one man to secure their seat in the Oval Office. That man is Roger Stone. This is The Roger Stone Show on 77 WABC.
Welcome. This is Roger Stone, and this is The Roger Stone Show. Joining me now is a man I would call, well, the national troubadour, a man who's done more to rouse the patriotic spirit of the United States than anyone since perhaps, well, Francis Scott Key, the man who wrote the Star-Spangled Banner. If that song is our national anthem, then God Bless the USA is our national song. I am particularly proud to join Lee Greenwood here and welcome him on the Roger Stone Show. Lee, welcome for joining us.
Thank you very much, Roger. Great to talk to you. I always wished, I guess, I had a show named after me, but I don't have one. I do have my name on my bus, and we tour nationwide talking to people in America and trying to find out what the pulse is. And it's interesting, you know, as I talk to you now, our tour will continue throughout the summer all over the country and just kind of get a feeling of what the nation is feeling right now about the attack on President Trump and the coming election.
Folks who want to know where Lee Greenwood can be seen and heard can go to leegreenwood.com. All of his tour dates are listed there. He's going to be in Michigan in several stops, August 17th, August 19th, August 20th, going on from there to Georgia, from there to North Carolina. I urge you to go to leegreenwood.com. First of all, his biography is fascinating. My old friend Lee Atwater told me that not only were you a country and Western artist, but he told me that you played a mean R&B saxophone.
Thanks, Roger. I played the woodwind since I was a kid. My mother was a piano player in the 40s. Of course, my dad joined the Navy right after the bombing at Pearl Harbor. And we were, my mother and me and my sister were kind of left for several years alone. So we were raised by my grandparents in Sacramento, California. And I had access to the piano, but I also loved the sound of the saxophone, and that's when I started to play it. And by the way, we kind of miss Lee Atwater. You know, I toured with George Bush 41, and it was sad that we lost him during that campaign.
Well, in fact, President George Bush appointed you to serve on the National Endowment of Arts Council. Your appointment was approved by the U.S. Senate, and that appointment has endured under both President Obama and continued under President Trump. Would it be fair to say that your expectations for God Bless the USA have really exceeded what you expected when you wrote it in the back of a tour bus in 1983?
Yeah, I think that's very accurate. We were writing songs on the road because I was playing every doghouse, outhouse, and roundhouse during the 80s, and it was difficult trying to keep up with our recording schedule, not alone writing music. And I had remembered that as a drum major from a high school band, I loved pageantry. I loved watching the military bands march by, and they were all such precision in their marching, and it was just something that inspired me to feel patriotic, I guess you'd have to say, at a very young age. And I never lost that feeling, even through my 20 years in Nevada, where I performed in the casinos for so long, and I got my country music career, moved to Nashville, Tennessee in 1979. And then as I'm touring, I see the pageantry all the time still. I would play these major shows with fireworks, and I said, geez, this is so wonderful. And I don't know, one night something inspired me when I saw a military marching band or just the National Guard here in Tennessee, and I wrote God Bless the USA, and you're right, it was in the back of my bus because I really just couldn't get home to write. And when we finally put it down on cassette tape, it was interesting how it had a life of its own, and it has ever since.
God Bless the USA has been in the top 5 on the country singles charts 3 times, 1991, 2001, and 2003, giving it the distinction of being the only song in any genre of music to achieve that fate. It was also the number 1 song on the pop charts right after 9/11. Additionally, CBS News voted God Bless the USA the most recognizable patriotic song in American history. Even Beyonce has recorded a cover of this song. That's a heck of a commentary. Lee, I'm curious about this. I had country and western star John Rich on a couple weeks ago, was right here at WABC for the Roger Stone Show, and I asked him who were his major musical influences. Who would you say, in any genre, has influenced your sense of style and your musical style?
It's a good question. Because I started as a musician first. I mean, I sang in the Baptist church when I was like 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, in those years, inspired by gospel music and my belief that I needed to be a Christian. But beyond that, my mother was a jazz player in the 40s, and because I had a lot of her records at home, and I say records, there were 78-inch records. I don't know if you remember those or not. They're going way back before 33 1/3. And we had a little record player, and I would play songs that she had listened to, one of which was called Artistry and Rhythm, which was by Stan Kenton. And Stan Kenton was considered the father of American jazz. And so that's kind of was my beginning. Before I even became a notable singer, I worked in the lounges and the main rooms of Las Vegas and Reno and Lake Tahoe for almost 20 years, and I would listen to people all the time, all around me, that were all very good. But I think moreover, I was influenced by the culture that was spawned from America's past, and Ray Charles became a favorite for me to listen to, Peeble Bryson, Sam Cooke. For some reason, the rhythm and blues really settled with me really well. And I know when I came to Nashville, my style was a lot different than anyone else, not just being from the West Coast, but because of my background. And I was talking to T. Graham Brown the other day, who's a very soulful country singer, and he said, I came to Nashville because I heard your voice. And so it's nice to know that, we have brought that side of the coin to country music, because country really found its own in the last 30, 40 years and moved away from just basically country and western. And when I toured with Barbara Mandrell and Kenny Rogers and Ronnie Millsap and the Oak Ridge Boys and the Gatlin Brothers and you name it, I had the other side. I had the contemporary approach to it. But there's enough to raise your emotions, through all the music that we had. And we've had 40 years of songs, 40 years of hits, which brings me to the fact that we have actually a film that we made that is going to be shown in motion picture theaters across America on Veterans Day, that features 40 different singers singing the 40 hits that I've had over the years, and we're going to issue an invitation for people to bring a veteran to the movie theaters across America with an initiative called Adopt a Vet. That's adoptavet.com, and for $50, send a veteran and their caretaker to see this wonderful film on Veterans Day.
How does PwC take your company to the leading edge? They bring the sharpest minds in tech to your team, so you can bring the ideas that will transform your business. They're passionate about your industry, so you can walk into any room with every advantage. And they're with you every step of the way, so you can know you're headed in the right direction. PwC builds for what's next, so you can get there now. Get started at pwc.com/us/leading edge.
This episode is brought to you by GMC. When you have 4 new tires, every drive feels fresh. Right now, buy 3 select tires and get 1 for just $1 during the GMC Certified Service Fresh Start Tire Event. Visit gmc.com/service offers or see dealer for full details. At participating U.S. GM dealers only. Highest or equal value tire will be $1. Offer ends 5/31/2025. Not available with other offers.
This episode is brought to you by Loom by Atlassian. Are you feeling stuck at work? Get your team unstuck with Loom video messaging and move work forward. Use Loom to simultaneously record both your screen and yourself to share a quick update, provide feedback, train a colleague, and everything in between. Plus, add Loom AI to your meetings for instant written notes and recordings. Try Loom today at Loom.com. That's LOOM.com.
I'm not surprised to hear you list Ray Charles as an influence. You know, as a fan of Otis Redding, Solomon Burke, O.V. Wright, I really do feel an R&B inflection in your music that I think is different than any other country and Western artist that I like. You have recently released the God Bless the USA Bible. Can you share with us what that's about and why it's special?
Yeah, my wife and I, of course, we've been married 31 years, and she's such a beautiful woman, and she actually led me back to Christ. And I, for many years, I just didn't have time to go to church, and I was like on the fringes, if you will. We have our own Bibles set by our bedside, and we have a table piece in our center of our living room. But I thought, in order to find the younger generation and reach them, not just as a Christian, but as a patriot, we decided to manufacture a King James version of the Bible. It's leather bound. It says, God Bless the USA, Holy Bible. And in the back of the Bible, we've added a readable version of the Constitution, the Pledge of Allegiance, the Bill of Rights, and the Declaration of Independence. So when people have this Bible, you can go to GodBlessTheUSABible.com or my website, LeeGreenwood.com, to find it. We are now in its second printing, and it's just a beautiful leather-bound place where you can go for peace and a lesson for your children and your neighbors in patriotism.
Very recently I had a very well-known actor come and visit me in South Florida, and I was really pleased to meet him, but before we met, he asked whether we could have dinner at some place where we wouldn't be seen together. I thought that was a little surprising. Many people in the entertainment industry don't want to talk about politics, don't want to talk about their belief in Christ, don't want to talk about their patriotism. You seem to be a man who, to me, has no fear. Can you talk about that for a moment?
Well, thanks for asking that. I am proud of that. And you mentioned my friend John Rich. We are very close, as is me and Tony Orlando and Gary Sinise and a few others who have no fear about stepping out and talking about America first. But I don't use my stage, and I do over 100 shows a year, to talk about politics or my conservative beliefs. Basically, I'm an entertainer first, and I don't use my stage for that. Now, in an interview, as I'm talking to you, Roger, I am proud to tell you that I will talk about America's greatness and its freedom day after day after day. I'm so blessed and so lucky. I'm a little bit different than most, being from California, but I don't care if you're from Texas, New York, or California, or Florida, or Wisconsin. I mean, I've met people everywhere who believe this country is the greatest country on earth, and so I'm not afraid to step out and do that.
Throughout your career, you've had the opportunity to perform for several U.S. presidents. Can you share the most memorable experience you've had, or do you have a favorite president? I know that may be a difficult question because you have met them all. You're pictured on your website at LeeGreenwood.com. Folks, go to this website. You can not only find out everything about Lee Greenwood, but you can also find out what his upcoming tour dates are, buy some great products, his music, his videos, his Bible. But tell us about your experience with the presidents.
Yeah, I'm a Reaganite. I mean, I go all the way back to the Reagan days when I toured with the president I was kind of Nancy Reagan's champion. Anything that the First Lady needed, I would generally respond to her, and it was the same with George Bush 41, and Barbara Bush, who I love dearly, both of them. As a matter of fact, even though President Trump has used my song as his entrance when he does rallies, I sang for President Trump at the Lincoln Memorial for his inauguration, but I also sang for George Bush 41 at the Lincoln Memorial for his inauguration. And I will tell you that at my years with President Reagan and Vice President Bush at the time, I really became very close to 41. And we spent time at Camp David, at the White House several times, just sitting and watching a motion picture. I played piano for him in the West Wing. And just before he went away from us, my wife and I went to Nantucket and actually played piano and sang for him in his residence there at Kennebunkport. And I was just like, oh my gosh, this is so wonderful to see him and be a friend of that president. He is my favorite and was.
I agree with you when it comes to being a Reaganite. I worked in his 1976, 1980, and 1984 campaigns, and once, when Nancy Reagan was visiting Darien, Connecticut, in the early fall on a particularly cold day, I was smart enough to bring a Pashima shawl for her, and therefore I remained one of her favorites. And from that point on, I could do no wrong. I admire the fact that you have performed for all of these presidents. It must be a truly great experience. Looking at today's contemporary country artists, or for that matter, all artists, other than the aforementioned John Rich, who was really great here on the Roger Stone Show several weeks ago, who else out there does Lee Greenwood listen to? Who do you like?
Well, Jason Aldean. I like Mark Wills, who may be my favorite singer in country music. Of course, Justin Lynch, Lee Brice. There's several that actually make the kind of music that I like to make. There's artists on the contemporary side, but I think the more George Strait kind of act, that's a cowboy act, kind of hones in on why people went to country music in the early days, leaving adult contemporary, if you will. You remember that format. And leaving rock and roll, which is so hectic and brings you to a fast pace to live in a big city. I think that's why people levitated towards country, because it had simple stories. It was 3 chords and a song, and that's what a lot of my records were about. I mean, we have 36 albums that basically are all stories and songs about hurting and love, and some breakup, but some romance, and great songs. And I think the artists that sing them today still inspire me because they are so good.
I recognize and I respect the fact that you try very hard to keep your presence as an entertainer separate from your political and your religious beliefs, but you have no fear about speaking out about what you believe in, and I admire that. Given what's happened in this country in the last 2 days, what's happened in the last 2 years, what are your feelings and hopes for America's future?
I guess my greatest hope is that people will search for the truth. Today's media, and we have 2 sons that are 28 and 25, and that is their biggest challenge, is to sort through media to find the truth. And there's a lot of misinformation, and it comes not just from the United States but from other countries as well, and it feeds through streaming and downloading. You can't just turn on the news anymore and go, oh, I trust what they say. You really can't. You have to find out exactly what the items are. I generally get my information from the stock report in the morning, and I like to find out what things are in the world and who's doing well and who's not. It gives me a little bit better of an insight. But it's tragic in how this recent lynch mob is going after a former president who is actually in line to be the next president. And I am just appalled that they would bring this to bear. I mean, if they had any issues with what our former president has done, why didn't they bring it to bear 3 years ago or 4 years ago, for that matter? You can clearly see it's an attack in order to eliminate him from running as the next president.
Jif peanut butter. It's that jiffing good, it doesn't really need advertising. So instead, enjoy the calming sounds of the ocean. Jif. Ooh, it's that jiffing good. Get your Jif at Jif.com.
This episode is brought to you by Netflix. 3 couples, 4 vacations, a lot to unpack. Watch The 4 Seasons, a new series starring comedy favorites Tina Fey, Steve Carell, Will Forte, Coleman Domingo, and more in a hilarious and heartfelt love letter to long-term relationships. Based on the original Alan Alda film. Watch The 4 Seasons, streaming now only on Netflix.
Last week was our first playoff game, and my plaque psoriasis was so itchy under all my gear. Sometimes just thinking about scratching could take me out of the moment. And then my doctor told me I could get clearer skin with a pill called Otezla.
Otezla apremilast is a prescription medicine used to treat adult patients with plaque psoriasis for whom phototherapy or systemic therapy is appropriate. Otezla can help you get clearer skin after just 4 months.
Okay, ready for the next game. Talking to my doctor about a pill was a total game changer.
Don't use Otezla if you're allergic to it. Get medical help right away if you have trouble breathing or swallowing, swelling of the face, lips, tongue, throat, or arms. Severe diarrhea, nausea or vomiting, depression, suicidal thoughts, or weight loss can happen. Tell your doctor if any of these occur and if you have a history of depression or suicidal thoughts. Live in the moment. Ask your doctor about Otezla. Call 1-844-4-OTEZLA or visit Otezla.com for prescribing info about cost, and more.
I could not agree more. I mean, this past week's indictment in Georgia, the more I dig into it, the more I see that we're in this place in America where questioning the outcome of an election, which should be everybody's First Amendment free speech right, has suddenly been criminalized if you're Donald Trump. But if you're Kamala Harris or Nancy Pelosi or Congressman Jerry Nadler or Stacey Abrams or Congressman Jamie Raskin, well, then it's perfectly all right because they did exactly that in 2000. They did it again in 2016, again in some states in 2018. It seems to me to be a two-tiered justice system, but I know quite a bit about that. Like you, I renewed my faith in Jesus Christ. It is true that there are no atheists in foxholes. And a time came in my life when I was the target of the Mueller witch hunt, when I had actually done nothing whatsoever wrong. You can't lie under oath in your voluntary testimony about Russian collusion that never actually happened. It's actually literally impossible. So I've been in this particular meat grinder. I spent time with President Trump about 2 weeks ago. This guy's fortitude, his determination, his resolve, his continued good humor under this withering attack is beyond anything I've ever seen. Look, I worked for President Nixon. I worked for Senator Bob Dole. They were both very, very tough guys, but not nearly as tough. I think a lesser man would have withered under this extraordinary attack. It is really beyond belief. And I'm inspired by the way you are inspired by your faith. What advice would you give to young artists who want to express their values through their art, through their music?
Well, I think first and foremost, music moves the culture. I remember reading books about Hitler when he began to take over Germany. The first thing he did was to get rid of the books and get rid of the history of the people of Germany. And so I think we need to look at our history. When people write songs and sing songs, they have to know they're influencing the culture with every song they release. And it arouses the emotions of the listener, and that's why artists become popular, because they say what we feel. And when I write a song, I'm the same way. I try to write something that not just people will relate to, and it's not about the money as much as it is being artistic. I want to make sure that what I release is palatable. It's something that people can relate to in their own personal lives, and that would be my advice to all new artists. Plus the fact that records are kind of your flag bearer. And radio jumps on a song after it's been popular with downstream, because it's a whole new way of releasing music now. And if you intend on reaching the public, it's the same old game as it always has been. You have to get on a bus or an airplane, and you have to find the people where they are and bring the music to them. So work hard and make sure your message is true and not cheap.
Folks, if you're just tuning in, this is the Roger Stone Show on WABC Radio. You can find us at 770 on the AM dial if you live in the New York, New Jersey, Connecticut area, or you can always listen to us at WABCRadio.com, where we are live streaming worldwide. People need to understand the enormity of Lee Greenwood's career. He's had 7 #1 songs, 25 charted singles to his credit. He has won numerous industry awards: Male Vocalist of the Year for the Academy of Country Music in 1983, 2 Male Vocalists of the Year awards from the Country Music Association in 1983 and 84, a Grammy for Top Male Vocal Performance in 1985. The CMA also named God Bless America as its Song of the Year all the way back in 1985. That demonstrates how extraordinarily enduring God Bless the USA is. I must tell you, it brings literally a tear to my eye every time I hear the opening bars. I think it has just stood as an inspiration to millions and millions of Americans who are proud to be Americans, who aren't ashamed of our country, who do recognize that this is the last best hope of freedom in the world, that we are, as President Ronald Reagan said, a shining city on a hill. What impresses me, Lee, looking at your website, is how hard you work. I mean, how many days a year do you travel? How many days are you on the road?
It's a lot less than I used to. In the first 3 or 4 years, it was almost 300 days a year, trying to find the fans, and we did that successfully. The acts that I was signed with at MCA Records at the time was Reba McEntire, George Strait, the Oak Ridge Boys, and Barbara Mandrell. And Barbara and I toured together. I toured with the Oak Ridge Boys and still do. They're all still my friends, and I really don't know. I have a passion about touring. And also, on a selfish note, that if I have to keep my voice in shape to be able to sing at 100%, which I always try to do, I just can't be off very long. If I don't sing for a month, it is a struggle to get back. At my age, even though it might have been harder younger, it's much harder now. And so I think it's better that I continue to sing and continue to tour with my wife's permission and my 2 boys, of course, my family. We want to spend more time with them, and it's interesting that we always have that same battle that anyone else does, and that's weighing business against family. And there are different times when it's a different priority, but for right now, it's touring and trying to lift the hearts of America. Coming to this election, I know I've become a champion for the military, and that makes me proud, which is why we're releasing this movie nationwide on Veterans Day. Go to adoptavet.com and send a veteran and their caregiver for $50 to a movie. Oh my gosh, they will be so proud, and you will have done something wonderful. We want to send 50,000 veterans to these movie theaters.
Hi, this is Javon, your Blinds.com design consultant.
Oh, wow, a real person.
Yep, I'm here to help with everything from selecting the perfect window treatments to...
Well, I've got a complicated project.
No problem. I can even help schedule a professional measure and install. We can also send you samples fast and free.
I just might have to do more.
Whatever you need.
So the first room we're looking at is for...
Shop Blinds.com now and get up to 50% off with minimum purchase. Blinds.com. Rules and restrictions may apply.
Yeah, I see the promotion for this on your website. It really looks extraordinary. I urge people to go once again to LeeGreenwood.com to see not only the upcoming tour dates, you can look at 40 years of hits. You can access his music, his videos, some terrific photos. Go to the store there and support this iconic American artist. This has been an extraordinary pleasure and honor to have you. Let me ask you a final question. Are there any current issues or causes that you feel particularly passionate about and you'd like to bring more attention to?
Well, as we have talked about, I dedicated, my father was military, my wife's father was military, so we're Navy and Army both invested. I did not serve in the military, so this is kind of my way to giving back. And I don't know what makes somebody a patriot. I think it's just love of country, because home is where your heart is. And if your heart is here in America, then you need to take care of America. And that's pretty my initiative, and that's what I'm trying to do during my remainder of my touring life, my touring years. And so once again, I will mention adoptavet.com. That is something I really believe in. And so if you'll help me and all of your listeners, go to adoptavet.com. Thank you.
All right, there's a perfect plug for a very important and worthy cause. This is Roger Stone. This is The Roger Stone Show. And I want to thank American icon, patriot, and superstar Lee Greenwood for joining us on The Roger Stone Show today. God bless you, Lee. May your travels be safe and successful.
Thank you, Roger, and God bless the USA.
God bless the USA.
Plan on flying? It's time to upgrade to a Real ID. Because in order to board domestic flights, your driver's license or state-issued ID must be a Real ID, or you'll need another acceptable form of identification. So don't wait. Find out how to get your Real ID at tsa.gov/RealID. That's tsa.gov/RealID, or visit your local DMV. And then you'll be cleared for takeoff.